Last but not the least in any way, we have the man from Motilal Oswal, Mr. Aashish Somaiyaa, Managing Director and CEO of Motilal Oswal Asset Management. Ashish has over 15 years of experience in the investment management industry and is very popular among most financial planners in India because of his quick wit and problem-solving nature. Ashish has been at the forefront of Motilal Oswal mutual funds since 2013 and has made it one of the most respected and sought-after fund houses in India. Prior to Motilal, Ashish was with ICICI Mutual Fund.
I would like to thank Abhinav and the entire team at Vyana for calling me here. But few observations that I could pick after listening to Nilesh as well as Navneet, and I just build on few of those things. You know, they made the first part of the presentation, obviously Nilesh made a strong case for, investing in the long term. And like Abhinav showed you the video, my company spends crores of rupees in advertising this one phrase, which is buy right, sit tight. And the reason why we spend so much money to advertise this is because there is humor behind that. Our observation is that when people buy right, they book profits. And when people buy wrong, they become long-term investors. So that is the big difficulty. He also mentioned about how, if you had bought HDFC 20, 30 years back, you would have made so much money. The common question I face, and a lot of our portfolios have HDFC or HDFC Bank as the top holding. And the most common question I face when I go to a client and he sees that my top holding is, say, HDFC Bank, the common question which clients ask us, कि ये तो हो गया ना अभी, ये तो हमको पता है, और HDFC बैंक खरीदने के लिए आपको फीस थोड़ी दे सकते हैं, तो आप ऐसा करिए, आप ये बताइए अगला HDFC बैंक कौन सा होगा. Isn't that a normal question, right? So what I've learned the very hard way is never to answer that question. And I always give two answers to my clients. And I tell them, you pick the answer that you like. So if somebody tells me which is the next HDFC or which is the next HDFC bank, I give them two answers. I tell them to pick the answer that they like. And I'll tell you both those answers. Because all the examples, people like us, all the examples we give about wealth creation are about stocks which have done well in the last 20 years. The obvious question is कि मुझे तो अगले 20 साल में बनाना है, right? So it's normal, like क्या होगा? So I give you two answers, you pick what answer you like. So when somebody asks me which is the next HDFC bank, the first thing I can say is, look, it's like this. There is one statistic that HDFC bank earnings grow at about 25% year on year. It's a track record of nearly 20 years now. And simple arithmetic tells us that something which is growing 25% every year, in approximately 3 years it will double, right? So if it is X right now, it grows 25% year on year. In 3 years, it doubles. So there is one HDFC bank, in 3 years it will become twice. So my first answer is that the next HDFC bank is HDFC Bank itself, correct? That is one answer. The second answer I give them or I suggest to them is that there is एक साउथ का बैंक है, पिछले 50-60 साल से तो कुछ नहीं हुआ है, लेकिन अभी 3 साल पहले इन्होंने एक मल्टीनेशनल कंपनी का आदमी को CEO बनाया है, पूरा सब रीब्रांड कर दिया है, कलकत्ता में 15 ब्रांच खोल दिया है, सेविंग अकाउंट में 7% देता है, अभी IFC वॉशिंगटन ने 20% स्टेक भी लिया है, सब मल्टीनेशनल बैंक का स्टाफ लिया है और लोन तो 24 घंटा में अप्रूव करता है. सर आप ये बैंक पे नज़र रखिएगा, अगले 3 साल में जरूर ये HDFC बन जाएगा. ओके, विच आंसर डिड यू लाइक? बहुत झूठ बोलते हो आप लोग. See, it's like this. Most of the times in a controlled environment where there are nice thoughts, you just heard Nilesh, you heard about Mahabharata, you heard Navneet. So when there are nice thoughts around you, all the people, and before the bar counter is open, all the people always say HDFC Bank. And I can tell you they all are lying. Normally what people actually think is, जब ये मोतीलाल ओसवाल से आया है, इतना बड़ा विजिटिंग कार्ड दिया है, तो इसको कुछ ज़्यादा ही पता होगा. और बाय द वे आप सब लोग बोल रहे थे फर्स्ट आंसर पसंद आया, अभी तक मेरे को ये बताइए हाउ मेनी ऑफ यूर थिंकिंग कि ये दूसरा कौन सा बैंक का बात कर रहा था? हैंड ऑन हार्ट, हाउ मेनी ऑफ यूर थिंकिंग कौन सा बैंक का बात कर रहा था? सर ऐसा 7 बैंक है. There are 7 like that. Okay, so what happens is that the human mind is attuned to listening to and believing stories, because in our childhood we were told that there is a princess, the princess will kiss the frog and the frog will become Prince Charming. ऐसा शेयर बाजार में नहीं होता है. शेयर बाजार में क्या होगा कि आप खरीदोगे, उसके बाद प्रिंस चार्मिंग फिर से फ्रॉग हो जाएगा. Okay, now you think of the first one which I told you. See, the first one is like this. There is one guy running that bank for now 20 years. There is systems, procedures. You know it works, right? There is a track record. You know the NPA numbers. You know it grows 25% every year. All the data is in front of you. The proof of the pudding, eating, everything is there. But you think ये तो boring है ना यार, इसमें नया क्या बोल दिया? You like to listen to stories. So first point is that in our country, if you think that, and these are not recommendations, there is State Bank of India, there is HDFC Bank, there is Kotak Bank, there is HDFC Limited. In our country, if you really think that the story is over and it's done and dusted, then you're way off the mark, because it's just begun. And I'll tell you why I say it's just begun. Because I don't know what prime ministers in other countries do. In our country, the prime minister opens bank accounts and sells insurance policies. So if you really think that the story is over, then I think you got it wrong by a mile. The second thing you should know is that the world market cap is about $70 trillion and our market is $2 trillion. The world's largest company is Apple, which is about 800 billion. In our country, the largest company is TCS, which is about 80 billion. So what you need to understand is that our market is less than 2% of the world's market. Our largest company is less than 10% of the world's largest company, and the world's largest company is more than 50% of our entire market cap. And in our country, it's not CEOs and sales heads. The prime minister opens bank accounts. And the irony is that when he says you should open a bank account, अच्छी बात है, तो हकीकत में 15 करोड़ लोग बैंक अकाउंट खोलते हैं. Okay, so it's not matured by any stretch of imagination. It's just about started. This is January 2016. Just imagine if all of us spoke to you 18 months back and we told you that oil will be $35, fiscal deficit and current account deficit will be under control, the rupee will be reasonably stable, RBI will cut interest rates, and inflation will be under control, and NDA will have a full majority, and BJP on its own will be 282 seats, and Narendra Modi will be Prime Minister, but the Nifty will still be below 7,500. How many of you would have believed this 18 months back? 1 year back, when Nifty was about 9,000, how many of you are thinking कि वो stand-up comedian का बात सुन लेना चाहिए था? Right? So in our market, the biggest challenge is that जब market ऊपर होता है सबको महंगा लगता है, और जब नीचे होता है तो और गिरने का डर होता है. So there is never really a right time, when you can actually make this decision and invest. So, if you're out, you're anxious. If you're in it, you're anxious. The point is that you better be in it and, enjoy the full journey. Have you received this example कि 1980 में 10,000 का विप्रो लेते तो आज 600-700 करोड़ हो जाता? Whenever I read this example, कि I should go back home and ask my dad that when Wipro was at 10,000 rupees, what were you doing? Can I ask him that question? And what do you think he can answer? See, he will basically say all the right things, because he will say there was no Indian IT, there was no Apple, there was no American IT. What Indian IT you're talking about? Wipro to tel bechta tha. Correct? He will say that there was no internet, there was no Economic Times. Nilesh didn't come and speak to me, right? So he'll give all the valid answers and I have to accept those answers because it's a fact. And then I always think that 20 years later, if my son or my daughter ask me, कि तुम क्या कर रहे थे? तुम तो actually यही कर रहे थे. So what will you answer the next generation? And what Nilesh said is very relevant, because in our country, see, if I ask you one standard, very very simple question, कि आप बैंक में पैसा रखते हो तो आपको 8% मिलता है, लेने जाते हो तो 12% देना पड़ता है. Is that correct? तो आपको बैंक का डिपॉजिटर होना चाहिए या शेयर होल्डर होना चाहिए? यहाँ पे सब बोलेंगे शेयर होल्डर, कल सुबह चेक काटने का होगा ना, सीधा पूछेंगे रेट कितना चल रहा है. So the point is that in our country, whatever your answer may be, the reality of life is that in our country, the entire market cap is 100 lakh crores. Bank deposits are more than 100 lakh crores, and the market cap just doesn't matter because retail holding in our entire market is about 11 or 12%. And one more fact about retail holding, In the full market, the retail holding is 11 or 12%. Take a wild guess. In Nifty, what is the retail holding? It's 4%. So Nilesh made a point that Indians don't own enough equity. I can add further, whatever we own junk. Our analysis says that in the last 20 years, there are 47 companies whose share prices have gone up more than 100 times. And all these companies whose share prices have gone up more than 100 times in last 20 years. And a lot of us have actually owned these shares, but how many of us have multiplied 100 times? It's not very common. The reason is because when we buy something, forget multiplying 100 times. If you buy something for 100, the 100 becomes 120. We are willing to take 20 rupees off the table. But if the 100 becomes 80, we become long-term investors. One of the most remarkable things about the investing world is how correctly venerated Warren Buffett is and how completely people ignore his advice. So he has got the status of God now. You know, people go to the temple, but they don't actually do what God preaches. And see what he himself says. He himself says that what we learn from history is that people don't learn from history. History suggests that you should let your winners continue and work on your losers. In reality, what people do is that they book profit with the winners and they become long-term investors when they actually start losing. Share on its own doesn't mean anything actually. The meaning of the word share is share of profit. And what this data shows that over 10 years, 15 years, long periods of time, eventually shares give returns in line with the growth in the earnings. In 10 years, the earnings on Nifty have compounded 9%, and the value of Nifty has compounded 15%. There are so many fund managers, there are mutual funds, but what is the role of an advisor? Why do you need an advisor to guide you or to hold you through all these things? And that's just one simple message here. You know, when the market is booming, everything is rosy, you know, everybody can, you know, ride the horse, but life becomes difficult when, you know, things don't go the way you expect them. So anyway, thank you very much for a patient listening. It's been a pleasure to speak to all of you.